on your Alexa-powered smart speaker and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. America First with Sebastian Gorka, today at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So, former President Trump in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, doing a town hall with Sean Hannity last night, and of course, recounting the news out yesterday that he received another love note from Jack Smith on Sunday. Here's how that went. Note the response from the sizable audience convened in Cedar Rapids to the news.
And you released on Truth Social earlier today that that you are a target of this January 6th grand jury. My first question to you is, it doesn't seem to bother you like I think it would bother so many other people. What is it about you that it doesn't?
No, it bothers me. It bothers me for everybody in this incredible sold-out audience, and it bothers you. I got the letter on Sunday night. Think of it. I don't think they've ever sent a letter on Sunday night. And they're in a rush because they want to interfere. It's interference with the election. It's election interference. Never been done like this in the history of our country, and it's a disgrace. What's happening to our country, whether it's the borders or the elections or kinds of things like this, where the DOJ has become a weapon for the Democrats, an absolute weapon. And it seems that every time my polls, we're leading by a lot. And we're leading by a lot in a place called Iowa, a lot. And not only with the Republicans, but we're leading against Biden by a tremendous amount. They haven't seen anything like it. And they feel, I guess, they want to try and demean and diminish and frighten people, but they don't frighten us because we're going to make America great again. That's all there is. We're going to make our...
Yeah, they don't frighten us. Well, Trump's not frightened, and according to the CNN panel that was convened to address this breaking news yesterday.
Oh, everybody listen up, please. This is good.
Jack Smith, the special counsel in the matter, he's not frightened either. And John King at CNN knows he's not frightened because there's a tell. There's a Jack Smith tell to let you know that he's not frightened, he won't be bullied by Trump, and he's not going anywhere. John King's on the story.
Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump tries to intimidate people. He tries to bully people. He tries to scare you away. That was Jack Smith with no words and a simple $5 sub in his hand saying, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, the imagery was intentional and spoke volumes.
Okay. How you can equate just going out to get a sandwich at lunch with strength and power and I'm not backing down? I don't know how you can come to that conclusion. By watching a dude who's hungry walk out of a Subway shop.
I've never listened to two people more wowed by a footlong.
They used to be married, too.
Kimberly Strassel joins us now. She is the Potomac Watch columnist for the Wall Street Journal editorial page. She is also the author of the new book, The Biden Malaise, How America Bounces Back from Joe Biden's Dismal Repeat of the Jimmy Carter Years. And that is out now, so pick it up. Kim Strassel, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's so great to be here, Dan and Amy. And by the way, the next time I get attacked on Twitter, I'm just going to go buy myself a Subway sandwich.
Exactly.
You go, girl.
That is the universal sign of defiance. I don't. Well,
Take that, Che Guevara. So there.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I mean, have you ever heard something so silly in your life?
No, it was ridiculous. Look, I mean, this whole thing, I said all the way going back to impeachment, if Democrats were going to take the, very unusual step of going down the impeachment road, you needed to have a charge or an accusation that was so overwhelming that you could convince 95% of the country that it was right. Obviously, they didn't. And the same goes here for Jack Smith. If you are going to take the unprecedented step of indicting a president, which he's done once, if you're going to do it twice, you better have a case that is so rock solid with evidence that is so compelling that you can convince 90% of the country, 95%. If you can't, it's going to be viewed as partisan, and that's that reaction you heard at that Trump town hall.
Right, and the reporting on this is that the letter made reference to a few statutes, including witness tampering. So, to the question of does Jack Smith have more than just his speech on January 6th as the basis for any forthcoming indictment, the answer seems to be yes, though we don't know how compelling that's going to be. And if they're going to try to make the case that he's being indicted for attempting to overthrow the federal government, then it's going to be hard to make out because he doesn't have really any conspirators they can point to that have been prosecuted. I mean, so I don't see how they get from here to there, even if there are a number of statutes implicated. It just doesn't seem like they have the threat to our democracy, overturning an election, staging a coup attempt. I don't see how they get anywhere close to that being to making that argument persuasively.
Well, it's the opposite of a rock-solid case. This would be tenuous at best. This is not the kind of case where you want a special counsel, again, taking an unprecedented action. In some ways, I would just note, too, that, we're already starting to do this. Now we're going to start delving into the charges and the merits of the charges, when to some degree, it almost doesn't matter because of my prior point, which is that if you're going to take these actions, you have to convince Americans that you're doing it for real reasons and not on the basis of politics. And yet we now have a DOJ who has acted so inappropriately on so many occasions when it comes to Donald Trump and Republicans versus Democrats like Hunter Biden. No one's ever going to believe it anyway.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's one of those things where it's almost surreal because on the one hand, you have a Department of Justice, a special counsel, that is on the cusp of essentially accusing a former president of the United States of treason. On the other hand, we're just supposed to ignore this all because it's all fruit of the poisonous tree, and this is just a federal version of Alvin Bragg, and it's all really rather silly, isn't it? Let's get on with the election. I mean, it's really, you have to be sort of split minds to comprehend what's going on here.
Yeah, I think it shows how divided the country has become. And I think it's also a consequence of the unseriousness of recent politics, right? I mean, this was my point about impeachment. That is a tool that should be saved and used in the gravest of circumstances. Democrats couldn't wait to whip it out and use it on Donald Trump. Where would we be right now if there hadn't been a Russia collusion hoax, if you hadn't had, that impeachment based on, with interviews held in the basement of the Capitol, secret interviews and whistleblowers we never met? If anything had been done by the book, where would we be right now if this instead was like the first time that there was a serious accusation that was being leveled against Donald Trump by a serious prosecutor in a Department of Justice that hadn't undermined itself? Maybe the country will be differently, but it's almost impossible to do that now given the history.
Well, and of course, concurrently, you have every day new information, new whistleblower testimony about Hunter Biden and Biden Incorporated, if you will, that
seems to go nowhere.
Well, right. It's, you've got like serious people, FBI supervisory agent, an IRS supervisory agent, other whistleblowers coming forward, all saying the same things. There's not really much of even an effort outside of Jamie Raskin to challenge it on the merits. And people are watching that too and saying, well, in addition to the plea bargain, you're telling me to look away from all this, and we're just supposed to focus on that. And so that combined with other incidents, high-profile incidents of late, with Christopher Wray's testimony last week, it's just like, give me a break. I mean, if I'm just paying passing attention, it's just so obvious that there's one standard for people who think this way and another standard for people who think another way.
Yeah, and that especially comes across if you read the transcripts of those two whistleblowers. Obviously, we're getting more from them today, but those transcripts laid out just, again and again how they were blocked from doing normal investigatory steps that they would do with anyone else. And it was clearly because they were dealing with the Biden family. And then you compare that to what instead seems to be a special counsel who's going out of his way to do extraordinary things, unprecedented things. I mean, why can't we have one standard here where everyone is judged the same?
I want to get to your book, The Biden Malaise, How America Bounces Back from Biden's Repeat of the Peanut Farmer Years. So I mean, a new president, different control of Congress, but I mean, what? Without giving away the ending, how does America bounce back in addition to making different electoral choices?
Well, one big part of the book, an important part, is noting that while on the face of it, the similarities between the Carter years and the Biden years are extraordinary. Inflation, high gas prices, foreign policy messes, high crime. That in fact, this is unfair to Jimmy Carter because Jimmy Carter inherited a lot of his messes. And while he made things worse, he was at least well-intentioned. Joe Biden inherited a pretty solid situation when he got into office. Low inflation, low energy prices, an economy that was about to roar back after COVID. He deliberately took steps that created the messes that we're in now. And that's a big difference. And the one thing that I do think ties them together is the American reaction, which is there's a growing backlash. Look at Biden's polls. They're as abysmal, if not worse, than Carter's. And the opportunity, the moment here for, I think, free market conservatives is what came after Carter, the Reagan years. And that was because you had a leader who made the case, who had a vision, and who was optimistic. And that man changed not just one election, but electoral politics for a generation.
Kimberly, do you think, though, President Biden will make it to the next election? I mean, yesterday, I'm sure you saw it. He was in the White House with the president of Israel, and he was looking down, and it's as if he went to sleep for a little bit, then came back up and started. Nobody understood what he was saying.
Yeah, Amy, I am still one of those who believes that there's a 50-50 shot that even though he's announced that he pulls the plug on this campaign. I don't know why he announced in the first place. He would have served himself so much better to have announced that he was going to be a one-term president, to have tried to fulfill some of those promises to bring the country together. No one who looks at that guy believes that he's fighting fit for another 5 years in office. It's crazy. And I'm still quite astonished that, unlike in the Carter years, that you haven't had a real fighter come out and challenge him in a primary.
So, I mean, you have as keen an insight on this as anybody. You mentioned, Reagan succeeding Carter. So, in the Republican field, I mean, who do you think has the most Reagan upside potential?
It has yet to be seen. I think people kind of grow in their campaigns, and I don't think we're anywhere near the thick of it again. One thing I have noticed in the field is that everyone in their own way is trying to emulate Trump. Mm-hmm. In that they're trying to show they have the Trump fight, okay? One thing that I think is missing from almost all of the field, other than maybe Tim Scott, who's running a very optimistic message, is that kind of positivity, that kind of look to the future. I think that sometimes people forget that it is possible to be very principled, to be tough, to not back down from a fight. I mean, that was Reagan. If you don't know the history, ask the air traffic controllers whether or not Reagan was willing to take on a fight. He was, but he did it with a smile, he did it with humor, and he did it by inviting in people from the other side. Making the party open its arms to anybody who wanted. And that's how we got Reagan Democrats, right? He was like, come on in, feel the water, see if you like it. I think there's whole swaths of the country that would like that invitation, but it remains to be seen if the GOP can come up with a candidate who can both be really principled but not alienate half the country.
She is Kimberly Strassel, Potomac Watch columnist for the Journal editorial page. That's must read. And her new book is as well, The Biden Malaise, How America Bounces Back from Joe Biden's Dismal Repeat of the Jimmy Carter Years. Kim, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it. Good luck with the book.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey .pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Hi, Barry Sterner, founder of Townstone Financial. Inflation has caused many of us to use our credit cards more than usual. Having large credit card balances at interest rates at or near 20% is difficult to manage, on top of the fact that making minimum monthly payments is a path to financial disaster. So how about taking out a